it was interesting trying to go into homes of people in Argentina, just because the culture is so different. A lot of them don't even have screen doors, and so they just like tear rags and hang it for their door as their door, just so that the flies don't come in. So that's interesting. You just walk and you can kind of see into everyone's home, and then when you go in, you just kind of walk through the torn rags. The houses are all very small. They're not a very they don't have a lot of money down there, so the houses are always very small. And usually there's just one room, kind of a central room that's not like the kitchen or a bedroom, where the table will be where they will eat their meals, but also watch TV or talk. So there's no couches. I remember thinking it's so strange that no one has couches and no one has carpet, just, cement floors and a table in a small little room. But another thing that was interesting was they always have the TV on. So that was one of the original struggles of going in and teaching, trying to ask people to turn off their TVs, and they never turn it off, and that's just a very odd thing. Because usually they'll have conversations with friends, and the TV will just be noise in the background. So I remember when I was first there on the mission and didn't have the courage yet to just always say, or figure out how to say politely, "Can you turn off your TV?" I remember once I was teaching a lady and she kept looking at the TV screen, and it was annoying me so much because I felt like I was giving her this powerful sermon and she wasn't even really listening. So I went and stood right in front of the TV and so that she couldn't watch it. But it was just really interesting, all the nuances of the culture, and a lot of them were not conducive to teaching, just because they like to have the TV on, that as soon as you get there, they want to get up and start serving you mate or cookies or drinks or whatever, and you'll be talking, and then all of a sudden they just get up and leave to go prepare something, and you're just like, "Come back, I don't care." So it was just interesting trying to figure out how to teach these people, how to set it up as you're taught in the lesson, to turn off all the TVs and sit down and pray. And it's a very formal thing, and they're a very informal culture. So to do a lot of those formal things which to us is normal was just kind of awkward and uncomfortable for them. So it was interesting at the beginning trying to figure out how to not force them to go by certain things, but also trying to create an environment where they could feel the Spirit and learn. Another really difficult thing for me in the beginning was they don't have the same concept of time that we do. Here we're very much structured, and we make appointments, and we try to be on time, and the White Handbook says, be there 5 minutes, you're representatives of Jesus Christ, and no one wanted to make appointments ever. If we made an appointment, it's because I forced them to pick a time, or I said, "Okay, well, we'll be here at this time," so that I could feel good about making an appointment. But I learned that, any appointment I set up never worked. And they just weren't ever home when we made an appointment. And if I said, "Okay, we'll be there at this time," they'd be like, "Well, if I'm here, I'm here. If I'm not, I'm not." So it's just like, okay. So after about a month of trying to get to everywhere when we said we'd be there, and trying to have a very structured plan, we started learning, me and my companion, that you have to work with them differently. You have to understand their culture. And so I think it's important, because no matter which part of the country or the world you go to, there's going to be different cultural things that tie into how you can do the work, because you have to be able to accustom or tailor the missionary work to fit their needs and their customs. And so it became more of kind of learning and remembering when they're home and when's a good time to stop by. And most of the time just showing up when we felt impressed, or when we were working in the area and we thought, oh, they should be home now, and just kind of showing up. And when we just showed up and they were home, they would, be glad for us to come in. But it was just the appointment setting that they didn't like and never worked. And I remember at first getting really frustrated because, we'd plan every night and make backup plans and backup plans to the backup plans. And then they're never working. And then just feeling like I'm just walking for 9 hours a day or doing nothing. And but when I let go of trying to follow my schedule so exactly, and I would make a plan, or like a general idea of who I would want to see, maybe the things that we need to teach, or the people that are on our minds that we need to help, and then kind of have a general direction of where I wanted to go through the day, but being willing and open to new possibilities and opportunities. So like if an opportunity opened up, but I we had planned to go here, but as this opportunity opened up, I learned to take those opportunities and be flexible. And I think that's when my work started changing a lot, just because I allowed the Spirit to guide me more of who to talk to, who to help. And a lot of times I would find, like, if I was stressed because we had an appointment, but we found a wonderful teaching opportunity or a new investigator, or met an old investigator that we've been trying to find for a while. But usually the people that we'd been trying to go weren't even home, and we'd go later and they were there, and it just worked out. And so it was learning to trust more on it being the Lord's work, and just allowing, I guess, giving up control, which, just seemed backward to what I've been taught in the MTC. But I think there were good lessons for me to learn. And I think all missionaries realize at some point in their mission that the mission where they go is perfect for them. And I think it's because the Lord wanted me to learn certain things that I had to develop in order to work with the Argentine people.
Okay, adjusting to culture. I think the biggest thing is to just laugh at yourself. Some things you won't get why they do, or you won't even really understand what they're saying or background behind things. But just learn to laugh at yourself and keep your head up, your self-esteem up, because you'll get used to it. Things will come eventually, even when you think it won't. You won't. But just to try new things, don't be afraid to get on your knees and ask specifically, okay, I really want to be able to like this food, or I want to be able to connect with the members in this way, and I think you'll get those answers. I know that. And people in Argentina are really loving. They greet each other with a kiss and hug. The guys do that to each other too. They just are super loving, touchy-feely people. And I had a lot of companions from Argentina as well, and I definitely was not a person that was touchy-feely, so it was a little bit different for me. But as you just try and learn maybe one thing a day that's different about Argentina, the foods they eat, it'll help you to learn to love just everything about it. One of the biggest things for me with the culture was probably the touching, and the food I really didn't have too much of a problem with, unless they fed us parts of the cow, and that's when you have to say some prayers and just hope all is well. But other than that, I would just learn about it and love everything about it, because you're not there for very long. You don't have that much time to learn about it. But it's amazing how much you can miss it afterwards. Yeah, and learning the language, I would just always remember that the Lord has taken you as you are, and He knows exactly your struggles. He knows how to help you learn, and it's important to go to Him always. And always use your companions. You'll definitely have one that's fluent in Spanish, a native speaker, and take advantage of them every second you can. Just be asking them questions. For me, when I was with my first companion, she was from Arizona, and I would just repeat everything she said. She would say her prayers, and I would try and repeat my prayers like she did, and then it would just kind of click. It took me a while as well. In Argentina, they talk fast, and it takes a while to get used to, but be patient and just have a couple words you want to learn each day. Repeat it in your mind as you're going through the day, and just realize that it comes. You may not be fluent by the time you end your mission, but you'll learn enough to be able to do what the Lord wants you to do there. They have this drink that's called mate that they absolutely love, and that's something that I've grown to love too. I've brought some home. They do a really fun celebration for the 9th of July, which is their independence, and they eat a soup every year. It's called locro. Has just a bunch of different meats, separate parts of the cow, pig, but it actually turned out really yummy. And I love the way that they celebrate, because they have their fun dances that they do, and they always stay for a really long time, and they talk to each other, and they really try to connect with each other on a different level. That is something I noticed about them, and it's maybe something that I haven't really seen in my life. I mean, we do here, but it's just a little different. We go to a party and maybe like, okay, we eat and we leave. But with them, you're there because you don't see those people very often. It's either on Sundays or something really, really special. So they really love those times to get together. And they have so many holidays in Argentina. We laugh at them sometimes, but almost every day of the week it would be a different holiday, like Cat Day, or it just would go on. So they love celebrating. They love having something to celebrate, and that's really fun. And they have this time of the day called the Siesta, and so they eat their big lunch and they get super tired, and then they shut down all their stores, everything. The street is so quiet from about 2 till 4, and that is when everyone sleeps. And you don't knock on their doors at that time. Depending on the mission presence, sometimes you'll have like language study or some kind of study in that time, but that was always really funny, maybe different, just seeing the streets quiet. Like, where did everyone go?
A lot of the people you meet, assuming that you're, a North American with a North American companion, a lot of stuff will just slide. They'll just pass it off as ignorance. But I remember in one of my zones, there was a missionary who was from Argentina, and he wanted to make sure that Americans didn't do anything, kind of silly. So one thing I didn't even think about, it wasn't even until like a year in my mission that I realized that it could even potentially be offensive, is pointing at things with your finger or pointing at a person. Because here it's like, hey, could you pass that to me? And that seems like a totally normal thing, but apparently if you point at a person in Argentina with your index finger, it's really impolite. So that was a big thing that afterward I was always really conscious to, either point with like my whole hand or just be really sensitive about that. But yeah, the people were really understanding, really forgiving. So if I made anything that was kind of embarrassing, it was just passable, because they're like, oh, you don't know any better. One thing that was kind of hard for me is I've always liked to joke with people. And my preferred method of joking is sarcasm, which doesn't translate very well. And I'm not sure if it's just a Spanish or if it's specific to Argentine culture. But I would, say something the opposite of what something was, and they would say that I was lying. And I'd be like, oh no, it's just a joke. And they're like, no, that's a lie. And it was funny because I was just doing it lightheartedly, and they'd say, no, Elder, you're lying. And it was hard for me to make that transition, just because obviously as a representative of Jesus Christ, you don't want to come across as somebody who lies. So maybe I had to change my style of humor. Argentine humor is very different than American humor. Like the funniest possible thing in Argentina would be like if somebody's pants fall down and they're wearing like underwear with like hearts on it. Like that's the kind of humor that they just love. So that was one thing that was a kind of an adjustment for me. And then, another thing, whenever you're leaving, so you're like, let's say you're here in the States and you're at a group of people talking, and there's 3 or 4 people and you just want to leave, you just kind of do. Maybe you say, excuse me, maybe you don't, maybe you just kind of sneak away because everyone else's focus is somewhere else. But if you walk away from a person in Argentina without saying permiso, or like, excuse me, like I'm going to leave, that's really, really bad etiquette. And I definitely made a few people mad on accident that way because it's just polite there. It's just something you do. But other than that, I think those are pretty much the big things that I really had to deal with. So Argentina, especially the north where Resistencia is like it's right next to Brazil. And that's where the big Carnival thing happens at the beginning of every year. And that's something that, it's basically just a wild party. Lots of alcohol, lots of making a mess, parades of scantily clad women, things like that. So when people were to get baptized and make a change in their life, that was usually the first thing to go, was Carnival. And then pretty much every holiday is based around drinking there, which I'm not sure how different that is from the States. But Christmas, Easter, everything was about, just kind of getting together and being with family, which for a lot of people entailed drinking. I remember we were walking on, Easter weekend. We were just walking around and we saw a bunch of kids playing like dice, like gambling. And I asked my companion, he was like, yeah, it's apparently to commemorate the Roman soldiers. So I was like, don't they know that's who, crucified Jesus? So I didn't think it was a really good celebration of Easter, but there are definitely different traditions. Since Christmas and New Year's are in the summer months, it's basically what you imagine for like the 4th of July. It's like big barbecue, big party. There's no tree, there's not as much gift giving going on. But it's just basically a time for family to get together and to have a big barbecue. There's always really good meat to be had. But yeah, those are the big ones. Another thing is the Argentine government will have what they call feriados, pretty much like once or twice a month, and that's just a day where no one has work, and it's Flag Day, Day of the Friend, Mother's Day, Father's Day. It's just any excuse really to just take a day off, which was great for proselyting. We'd always be more excited to find people on Sundays, Mondays, and holidays because that's when we knew the family would be together at home.
So in Argentina, they give besos, which are just kisses on the cheek. And everyone does it, like women to women, women to men, men to men, everyone gives kisses on the cheek. But as missionaries, we obviously don't give kisses on the cheek to men, but we definitely do to women. They're very affectionate and very touchy, all of them. So it was really interesting for me to go from a culture like ours that's more like handshakes to giving kisses on the cheek. Some people would get offended when we would stick out our hand to shake their hand, because they feel like it's cold and very businesslike. So yes, kisses on the cheek is the way to go in Argentina.
So one big difference in the culture is how, socially and how they greet people. Because they do the kiss on a hug and the kiss on the cheek is how, everyone greets everyone. Like, men greet men, and you greet the kids. And, I remember people telling me about this, and they told us, you're not allowed to give a kiss to the men, they're not allowed to give a kiss to you on the cheek, you're only allowed to shake the hand. Which for them is kind of weird, you just, put your hand there, you're like, oh, here, shake my hand, don't touch me. Especially when they don't really, the members usually are pretty good because they know missionaries aren't allowed to that. But when you meet, strangers or investigators for the first time, it's super customary. Just a hug and a kiss on the cheek. But you're like, okay, don't touch me. But I remember my first week there, and I saw when I was in church and I saw the members greet each other, and the men are just giving kisses to the men, and I'm like, okay, that is so weird.
But it just, you come to love it. You come to see, it just shows like how much they really do love each other and how open their culture is. There's seriously like no personal bubbles in Latino America, I think. But just always giving, and we'd always give the sisters a hug and usually, a kiss, because we were allowed to do that. And it really does like make you open up a lot to the people, and like it's like kind of like forcing you to love them. Like, okay, I have to give you a hug now. And like I also remember they're just really about like you have to greet everyone. Like you walk into church, you have to give everyone a handshake or a hug, or they're gonna be offended. Like I remember talking to members and they're like, well, so and so didn't greet me on Sunday, so we're not friends anymore. And I was like, okay, chill. Like that's not that big of a deal, but to them it's really big. So like you walk into a room, you say hi to everyone. And then when you leave a room, you say goodbye to everyone. Like handshake to everyone. Or if it's a girl, a hug. And like that's formal. That's nice. If you don't do that, you're wrong. So I remember that being big for the culture. And then just, like I said earlier, just how they eat lunch. Like lunch is their big main meal. Everyone comes home for lunch. And then at night they just, so it's like really late at night when they would, if they do eat dinner, it's late, or sometimes it's just like some bread. And just their nightlife is also just a lot. They stay up so late. That's just what they do. They'll stay up 10, 11, 12, like that's just the normal. Even the kids, like I remember being at someone's house and I was like, wow, it's 8:30, shouldn't your little kids be in bed? And they like don't go to bed until like 10:30 or something, because that's just how they are. And one other big thing with, it's like culture and food though, they always drink this thing called mate, which is kind of like a tea-ish thing. It's like a lot of herbs, and like have a little tiny cup and they put a bunch of herbs in it, and then they put sugar in it, and then they put hot water, and it's like tiny, and then they drink it out of a straw, and they just like drink it. So it's a tiny cup, so it takes them like 3-5 seconds to drink it, and then they just add more hot water and they pass the cup on to whoever's sitting right next to them, and that person drinks out of it, and they pass it back to like the person of the house, and they fill it up again with hot water and pass it to the next person. So they just like share the same cup and same straw and just like pass it around the circle. I mean, it shows like how much they like love each other. They don't care about germs at all. But as missionaries, we aren't allowed to drink that, which makes sense why. But I just remember like my first time like sitting in a room like watching people just pass this cup around. I was like, is that drugs or something? Like what is happening? But it's how they do it. And a lot of people like they have to have their mate in the morning. It's kind of like how coffee is for some people in the United States. Like they drink their mate in the morning to keep them up and keep them warm. So it's a big deal. And also they would like, because they like share their mate straw all the time, and they don't care about germs, they just like share cups all the time too. Like we'll be eating dinner with the family or lunch with the family, and like the siblings will just like share cups, and they'll just drink out of their little sister's juice cup or just like fill someone's cup up. And usually like with the missionaries, they'd give us our own separate cups, but when you're super like familiar and comfortable with the family, they're like, we don't really have enough cups, can you guys just share? We're like, yeah, no problem. So they're just all about sharing everything. No personal bubble there, no boundaries.
You're in a different country, so you can expect a totally different culture. I'd say they are much more, well, obviously when you greet people, they usually greet you with a kiss on the cheek. They kiss a lot more than they probably hug and stuff like that. But as a missionary, usually just as a rule of thumb, like you're not really allowed to kiss people on the cheek or anything like that, greeting people. Usually it's just between males and females. They talk, in my part of Argentina, they talk really slow, which is nice, I guess. They talk slower than most other Latin American countries like Mexico. They'll speak super fast, but here they speak really long and it's really drawn out and really dramatic sounding, and they'll use their hands all the time and just like, they'll just like use tons of emotions and expression there. And something that was really surprising to me was how open they are about lots of like physical things. And I just remember like in my first area, like the first meal we ever had with a member was really awkward because we were like, oh, you just had a baby, and like she pulls up her shirt and shows us this huge scar where she had her C-section, and I was just really weirded out because I mean you wouldn't see that here. You wouldn't ask somebody about their baby, they're like, oh, let me show you everything. In fact, she even showed us like a DVD of the whole procedure. So it was really awkward. But yeah, so it's totally different. Just be aware of that. And something else that's culturally acceptable there, that here it's a little different for us, is like women will just openly breastfeed their child, like in church or out in public, or when you're teaching them a lesson. Just don't be surprised with that, because I was at first kind of weirded out by it, but it's just something that's normal there. So those are like the main cultural things just to be aware of. And they love mate. It's this little drink that's kind of like an herb, just this green herb, and they suck it through a straw with like really hot water and some sugar, and they just drink it for hours on end, and they just pass it around and everybody drinks it. Don't mix it up, because they tell you you can't mix up the stuff. You just leave it where it is, pour in the water, sugar, sip it, pass it. So those are the main do's and don'ts, and just a little bit about the culture there.
So the Argentine people, especially, and you'll work a lot more with a lot of the more humble parts in Neuquén, they're very giving. And so when you meet an investigator, it's hard sometimes, because one of the first things they want to do is just be your friend, you know? And so you go and talk with them, and that's why you have in Preach My Gospel, you have chapter 10, like how to begin teaching and everything, because you kind of have to establish, we're here for this purpose, like we want to help you understand the gospel, we have a very important message to share, and you share things like that with them. But a lot of times investigators are like, oh, we love these missionaries. And it's hard sometimes because they get so attached to missionaries that if one leaves, it's hard for them to keep learning about the gospel because they feel so attached. But it comes from the goodness of their heart to really become your friend. And that was something that I loved. We had some investigators in lots of areas that we'd go visit them, and as soon as we'd get there, they'd be like, what do you need? Do you need water? We can make some juice. I made this cake for you. And you're just like, they're very, very loving people. And you'll find a few that aren't, but I mean, as a general rule of thumb, yeah, people are very open. And that's one of the things I love, because in some missions, I've heard that you can't talk with people on the street for whatever reason, whether it be political or like cultural, but that was one of my favorite things to do in Argentina, is people are walking around all the time, and they're generally open people, and be like, hey, we're missionaries. Have you seen missionaries like this before? They're like, yeah, but I've never talked with you. Like, what do you talk about? And you're like, we share a message, and you can just start talking with them. They're pretty good about listening, and they want to know. They have a very strong desire for knowledge. They want to be cultured, and so learning about things, and especially the message we have to share, is something that they're generally open to, which I like a lot. Other cultural things about Argentina, I mentioned the siesta a little bit before, but they do work a lot, and they value this chunk of time that they have after lunch to sleep or to relax or to be with their family. And that's good, because they changed the rules a little bit in our mission, where we would do the studies after lunch, which was really hard sometimes, because you'd just be so full of like Milanesa or something, and you'd be reading the Book of Mormon or like Preach My Gospel, and be like, do the like, you know, little eyelash thing. And so, but that's one thing that I enjoy, because they're very honest about it. They're like, oh, I can't, like I'm gonna sleep the siesta. They do drink something called mate, which is like, it's ground up herbs, and it's not against the word of wisdom, but in my mission we weren't allowed to drink it. And I think it's because that's a very cultural thing too. As far as being socially connected, mate is a very important part of their culture. And so what they do is they have these herbs, they pour them in a cup, and they pour hot water on it, and some drink it like bitter and don't put sugar on it, and it just tastes like you're sucking on grass. And some people put sugar in it, it's a little sweet, but it still tastes like grass. And we weren't allowed to drink it, because I think it's one of the things where if they're sharing mate with you, it's because they just want to do small talk. It's like, hey, you're our friend. We want to just talk about life. Tell us about what's going on. They're very considerate, and they love talking. People will talk over each other all the time, especially if they're taking mate. It's just like, it's relaxed, but lots of interruptions from all sides, because everyone has something to say. They're so opinionated. And that's good, because then when you teach them the gospel and they get a testimony of it, they're like, this is so important. But that's mate. It's a very social thing. I mean, I don't think people do it for the flavor, because it's kind of gross in my opinion. I don't drink it a whole lot. but that's something that they do to stay connected with other people, and they'll always drink that before doing the siesta.
Other traditions that I saw are just that are great, kind of general, are the fireworks, which are fun everywhere you go. Even in the small towns, they all do fireworks and they spend lots of money on them. Bombs, fireworks in the air. Christmas traditions are kind of fun. They'll get their ghetto trees out. Comparatively speaking, they're just a little small trees usually. And they'll have lots of things dangling from it. Mostly tinsel, I feel like, which is kind of fun. But lots of good food during the time of Christmas and New Year's. Another fun tradition is El Día del Niño. I like when they celebrate that. They'll give all the kids their toys. It feels like another Christmas, which is fun. Other traditions, Siesta. That's an important tradition to understand and be familiar with because it'll happen. You won't get it, but you'll be happy to know that the grumpy people are sleeping so that they're not as grumpy later on at night. And trying to think of other traditions that are kind of fun. Other holidays maybe that I remember. Pascua, the Easter time, is a beautiful traditions time. A lot of people just eat white meat, which is fishes and things like that. And it's kind of cool to talk about with people like, oh, why do you only eat white meat today? Oh, it's because of Pascua. We don't eat red meats and stuff. And that's kind of cool. There are lots of small town traditions. If you're ever in a small town, look for the traditions that they have in those towns. For example, a parade in 25 de Mayo was kind of fun. They have a parade that happens every time. I think it was for the bicentenario. Is that how you say bicentenario? Yeah, that's how you say it. That was a fun parade, and we almost just started walking in the parade just to be a part of it. Because it was such a small town event. It's like, oh look, there are the missionaries. Yeah, they should be in the parade. But we didn't. We didn't want to be stupid. So, yeah, those are fun traditions, I think.
Culture-wise, it seems like people are outside more. Maybe that's just because I was outside more. But there are a lot of people outside. People weren't afraid to stop and talk to you. Didn't seem like they had strict schedules that they had to keep. It's a lot more laid back. Everyone loves their family and all the families live close together, and they just have a really big emphasis on family, which is something you don't see as much in the United States. And it's just a different atmosphere, but it's still, for me, at the end it felt like home.
So Argentine culture, it's a lot more different than Hispanics or Mexicans or Spaniards or from different countries. They're all pretty different, even though they're all basically Latins. And so Argentina had some different hand signals that they would do. One of them was they would do ojo, and that just meant careful, watch what you're doing, watch what you're saying. So they would do that sometimes. And then there was also this one, which it looks kind of bad, but down there it just means I don't know. And then there was, what was another one? Oh yeah, there was this one. And it just means what's your problem? What's going on? And it's really funny when they do it. Their culture and their personalities are very similar to Greeks too, I noticed. So sometimes they'll go like this when they're talking to somebody else, and that's pretty cool too. A lot of the women down there, some of them don't work. They stay in the house and they take care of the kids, and a lot of times they'll just be ironing or doing laundry, and laundry takes at least half a day down there. They don't have washing machines or dryers. The ones that do are a lot more wealthier than the normal people. So us as missionaries, we didn't have a washing machine or a dryer either. We had a kind of a bucket thing that spun around and washed our clothes, but did a good job, did a decent job. You just have to fill it up with water from a garden hose, and then you throw your clothes in, pour some laundry detergent in there, and it just spins around for 20 minutes. And then whenever it's done, you drain the water, you take your clothes out and you wring them out, and then you hang them up on a line. And whenever they hang up on the line, they can come out wrinkled, but one of my companions taught me to just shake your clothes out before you ring it up on the line, and it'll take care of the wrinkles. So a lot of the women spend lots of time ironing and cooking. That's just the custom and the culture down there while the men go to work. So a lot of times with that, it was hard to find families and homes all at once because people were just out and about, and usually we could find the mom and the kids at home, but then we wouldn't be able to teach the husband because he was always working late. So we weren't allowed to drink caffeine or Coke or mate on our missions, and those are huge customs down there. They drink lots of soda and they drink lots of mate all the time. In the summer and the winter, just whenever they'll always be drinking mate. There's also it's a colder version of mate with ice, and it's called tereré. They drink that during the summer a lot whenever it gets hotter. So the people are just really, really nice, very humble, very sweet, and they accept you immediately and consider you family, and they want to share things with you because that's the way they express their acceptance. And so they'll want to share mate and pass things to you, but most of them by now know as missionaries that we don't do that. Some of them still question it, and you just tell them politely, as missionaries we're not allowed to do that right now while we're serving here. And then just you can still express your love to them and your appreciation for them wanting to share with you those things. We also weren't allowed to drink tea in the mission. Our mission president made that clear. The different types of tea we weren't allowed to drink, but we were allowed to drink herbal tea, chamomile tea, things like that. So one of the things that my trainer taught me to do was to just carry around a different type of tea bag. There's a tea down there called manzanilla, and that's very safe for missionaries to drink. So we would carry tea bags around like that in our scripture bag, and then if we were offered tea, we would say, oh yeah, here we have a tea bag, and it didn't offend the people at all. They were fine with it. But it just allowed for us to be able to drink that tea and sharing that with them, but also be able to avoid drinking a wrong type of tea or having to tell them that we couldn't drink that type of tea. The people are very, very friendly, and they're very loving, and they're very touchy-feely. They appreciate hugs, and they appreciate terms of endearment, and they love just lots of just signs of emotion, anything that you can do to make them feel loved. They appreciate that a lot. They're very sensitive and humble people. It's different from us as Americans because I feel like we're a little more standoffish, especially as missionaries. Whenever you put the plaque on, you're definitely tend to be a little bit more standoffish because we're shaking hands all day and kind of keeping our distance from things. But the women, especially the mothers and the wives, they like to be cared for and know that you care for them as sister missionaries, and that you're willing to do things for them and their family, and that you're there to help them. And it just shows them a lot more whenever you're a little more touchy-feely with them, because that's how they communicate.
People in Argentina and in the north, they really value football, soccer, and honestly, that was one of the things that I was able to use to get into doors. Was just talking to people about soccer. That you just go up, and I was there during the World Cup, which was a crazy experience. But I mean, just as soon as I start talking about soccer, a lot of people just open up completely, and you're just best pals, and they'll invite you in. And I mean, Argentinians are open in that way. I mean, they have no problem inviting you in for the most part to teach a lesson. They love the sport. They're really big, like the equivalent in Argentina of like the Lakers and Celtics. For them would be, the two teams are Boca and River. Like those two teams just dominate the country. A lot of times people would ask me point blank, are you a fan of Boca or River? And I kind of picked a neutral team so I wouldn't make enemies while I was down there. But that's the big rivalry. Whenever those two teams play, it's a big event. And during the World Cup or whenever Boca and River were playing each other, the country shuts down completely, and everybody watches. As far as why that is. I don't know if I have a why. I mean, they've had so many great players go through Argentina. Diego Maradona. You have Lionel Messi, who's from Argentina. So they've always been a pretty good soccer country. So I would say learn to love what the people love, because that gets you a foot in the door immediately. And even now, I mean, I still keep up with what's going on in Argentine soccer. Yeah, I mean, that it was honestly, it was a good missionary tool. Christmas is awesome. It's different from here. One thing that I remember, Christmas, I feel like Christmas Eve is a bigger deal than Christmas itself. Christmas Eve, everyone buys fireworks, and at midnight, everyone just starts shooting them off. Everybody, it sounds like a war zone. But I mean, just huge parties, everybody gets together, and they celebrate. They celebrate together, and then they have a lot of like little holidays. Day of the Worker, Children's Day, just all these little holidays, and they get all these holidays off, and it's an excuse for them to party together, to hang out together. The day after each of these holidays, you have to be careful, because a lot of people are hungover, and can be a little bit grumpy. So, but yeah, I mean, they love finding reasons to hang out together, to be together and enjoy each other's company. So tons of Catholics, and one thing with Argentina is they believe in God and in Jesus Christ, kind of at a distance. Like they believe in Jesus, and that's really it. Like they believe that he's important, but they don't really know why. And a lot of them, like, frankly, don't care. A lot of them were baptized Catholic as children, and that was it. They'll go to church, around Christmas time, around Easter. I mean, they're just really laid back about that kind of thing.
Something I love about the Argentine culture is just how warm they are. At least the culture in Buenos Aires East. I met a lot of really incredible people that have changed my life, and they were so willing to open their door for me. They were so willing to let me eat with them. I can count multiple experiences when we didn't have lunch, and we were walking and we started talking to someone, and they saw that it was cold out, or it was raining, or it was really hot out, and they'd say, "Oh, well, come eat lunch with us." They love to have us over, and we may not have converted them, we may not have baptized them, but I'll forever be grateful for those people that gave me water when it was hot out, or gave me food when I was hungry. You'll find that the Lord truly is with you if you just obey, if you just work, if you just have faith, if you just open your mouth. Let's see. Oh, they also give besos, which is like a kiss. So when they meet people, they always go, which you're not allowed to do as a missionary, but it's such a cultural norm that it's bound to happen to you at one point. So we always used to joke about different ways that you could avoid the besos.
So one thing I really like about Argentines is the greeting and the goodbye. It's a kiss on the cheek. I really like that. I feel like it's less awkward than a handshake. But so that's one thing that they do. And I thought it was so interesting when I got there. You don't knock on the door. They all have gates around their front yard. And it's really bad manners to go inside. I actually got yelled at once because I went inside the gate and knocked on the door, and she got really mad at me and wouldn't open the door until I went back out and got outside of the gate and clapped my hands. That's how they knock, is they clap hands. They clap their hands outside of the gate. Anyways, so that's one tradition. The food there is really good if you like pasta. They have really good, I guess English, in English it'd be a barbecue. They really like their meat. Love their meat. It's pretty good.